This Sunday, we celebrate Mother's Day, whether it's through birth, adoption, or even through spiritual motherhood. It is a day set aside to honor the mothers in our life. To discuss the unique role mothers bring to our society and some of the real challenges they face today, we are joined by this week's expert panel. Mary Rice Hasson is the mother of 7 children and director of the Catholic Women's Forum at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Elizabeth Kirk is an attorney, a writer, and the mother of 4 adopted children. How fitting to be speaking about motherhood with a Mary and an Elizabeth. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Mary, can you speak to the uniqueness of femininity and mother and the gift that motherhood is to the church and to our culture?
Yeah, great question, because it's something that's tremendously underappreciated right now. So, you know, when I think of motherhood, I think one of the things that is sort of lost is this idea that we are different, and women, when you look at us, we're created with room for another. So just that sense of who we are physically is a message for the church. It's a message for everyone, that every person is created for others and to give of themselves to others. But we women get to put that into practice, you know, in carrying a child, but just have that reminder, whether we're called physical motherhood or spiritual motherhood or anything like that.
That is beautiful. That is unique, and that is something we should embrace.
Yeah, we have to embrace our femininity, embrace our motherhood.
Now, Elizabeth, abortion numbers greatly outnumber adoption numbers. Yeah. Why do you think this is happening, and how can the pro-life movement better promote adoption?
Yeah, the statistics are astounding. The number of abortions in this country exceeds 1 million annually. The number of infant adoptions domestically is less than 20,000 by the most generous estimates. In terms of why, I think it's a very complicated thing, but I think one of the main reasons is that there's a stigma against adoption in the sense that many women who are in a crisis pregnancy don't consider adoption as a meaningful choice. Women who are asked about their reasons for abortion, if they even consider adoption at all, they state that adoption isn't something they considered, and if they did consider it, they rejected it because they think it's morally wrong to abandon their baby, and the thought of their child being out there in the world without them knowing anything about it would induce more guilt than having an abortion. And we know that in some cases Planned Parenthood reinforces this idea that adoption is more traumatic than abortion. So that's something I think as pro-lifers we need to be aware of, and we need to work against.
Yes.
You know what that actually makes me think of? One of the essential tasks of a mother is to affirm the significance of their child. In other words, you look into that child's eyes and it's, you are amazing. God created you. And so just affirming their significance, the fact that they exist. And abortion just strikes so directly against that, so that these women are being sort of persuaded erroneously that it's better not to even kind of acknowledge and give that child life, even if someone else raises the child.
And that child does have a purpose. How do we articulate that, though, in a society that continues to strip away at gender differences and a culture where it's sometimes uncomfortable to talk about motherhood?
Right. I think some of it is because there's people for many years were rejecting the idea that we're determined by the fact that we can bear children, and that's all women can do. And certainly there were prejudices and things like that. But I think we as women have to really embrace the fact that we are women and own those differences, and yet change the conversation that these differences are something to be valued. Yeah. You know, I think of Pope John Paul II's words that women see with eyes of the heart. You know, and that's what we bring to every situation, that acknowledgement of just the value of the person and their goodness and being able to nurture and encourage them. I'm sure you find that yourself.
Right, that's beautiful. And Elizabeth, in terms of adoption, how can we better celebrate those birth mothers to tell them this is a brave choice?
Yeah, well, I think following what Mary said, I think we need to reject the, the idea that women are somehow being bad mothers because they place their child for adoption. It's in fact, it's a great act of motherhood, right? To put your own needs and your own wants and your own very natural desires, put the good of your child ahead of those things. And so I think we need to first acknowledge that they are good mothers. I think birth mothers themselves can be the most beautiful witnesses for this message. I think adoptive parents need to be very careful that we don't objectify birth parents as a means to a child, right? I mean, when you adopt a child, you are building a relationship with the birth families, and it's a lifetime relationship. It's not just something that happens once. So adoption is in service to the child, but also to the birth parents.
About 6% of married women in the U.S. struggle with infertility. This is a very real issue that impacts a lot of families. So how do we celebrate motherhood while being sensitive and being aware of those women who are struggling with infertility?
I think it's very important to be sensitive to it because it's a very silent cross sometimes. I mean, especially in an age when many people are childless by choice. Sometimes people don't realize that you're struggling with infertility. It's also, as Mary was talking about, how motherhood, you know, our physical capacity for motherhood is part of what makes us uniquely feminine. And so it's part of what makes this a very painful cross. If you can't, as a woman, conceive and bear a child, that strikes at the heart of your femininity. It strikes at the heart of a marriage. The two become one, literally, in your child. And so it's a very painful, painful cross. But I think there are things that we can do to celebrate motherhood, nevertheless, to realize that all marriages are called to be fruitful, whether or not you can have biological children. I think that's important to emphasize.
And we have, one of our previous pastors had a practice of always praying around Mother's Day for those who were called to be mothers in whatever way, and bringing in just that idea that we can be called to spiritual motherhood, or mothers by adoption, or mothers by, you know, some other arrangement that comes about. You're taking care of your sister's children, or whatever it might be, but then also praying too for those who desire to be parents, and just to recognize that and to pray for that. So.
And sometimes it's as simple as asking your pastor to do that. They may not realize that that's something that they're, you know, that there's a need in the pew.
And so, that would be welcome.
Exactly.
It's like you said, it is a silent cross sometimes. Well, thank you both for your witness, and happy Mother's Day to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.